Yes, Lisa Katasik, yes.
Right. She is the founder of Women's Connection 2020, womensconnection2020.com, and I'll type in that website in a moment. It's a conference and coaching business that builds mentors, shares stories, and spreads joy, helping women in the workplace and home. She manages international Catholic speakers like Liv Harrison, launching her virtual talks and events. She coaches Catholic entrepreneurs and authors and serves on the team for the Genius Women's Conference. Just geniuses, right? She is also an employment and education attorney and mediator and consultant to private and public school boards, development teams, and colleges, managing fundraisers, building strategic plans, and serving on the creative direction and social media team at her former basilica in Connecticut. She managed Home Place Wisdom for 7 years, which fostered vocational development for Catholic women. She is an author, writing a book, stand-up comedy Marriage, How We Laugh Through 8 babies. 8? Wow. In a 12-year decade. She recently moved to Sarasota with her husband, Mark, and their 5 children. All right. And Lisa, is there something in that bio that you want to share? Anything cool? A hobby, a sport, something interesting, but legal, please.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So I was a varsity Division I basketball player in Ohio, where I'm from. So that was my, that's my passion. I coach girls basketball here, and I'm just tickled to be here with you guys. I have 5 kids. We had 3 miscarriages. So the 8 babies in the 12-year decade is sort of fun to talk about, but managing 5 kids with Zoom schedules and all of our work schedules has been quite fun. And I'm just really, really honored to be here, having met Carla, who happened to live in my neighborhood, which is a really funny story. And then meeting Philomena. So I'm just so excited to be connected with you all, and great to see your faces. I am really excited to bring you some encouragement today from some of the Catholic speakers who I help connect with and consult. So you'll see some of them on the video today as well. So John, I'm going to try to share my screen and share with you my PowerPoint. Let's see how this goes.
No problem.
Okay.
We see you, and we see the presentation.
All right. And I hope everyone will ask questions in the end, and we can interact. So, okay. There I am in my car because, as you know, when we're busy moms and entrepreneurs, we drive all over the place. So Women's Connection 2020, this is my website. This conference business came out of my desire to highlight the women in Stamford, Connecticut, who were really paving the way to share joy with their communities. We had a conference in September of 2019 where we highlighted the superintendent of schools and 6 teachers who had gone on a trip to Nashville and connected that way, 6 principals. And the idea behind the conference, as I said, is connection, mentoring, and celebration. So many of you in your jobs right now, as Carla talked about in the development talk, work on connecting with your donors, with your students, colleagues, board members, parents. We know this is important, and many of you do this part-time. So how are we continuing to connect when we're not physically together? How is our culture? How are we communicating? How are the people doing who I mentor? How are we celebrating? So these are all ideas in our minds right now in this difficult quarantine time. How can I still maintain that celebration in my school or in my fundraising efforts when we haven't been able to physically see each other? Some of us are coming back to work today, but how are we able to maintain that connection? And my goal in my business is always to celebrate everything and everyone. So one of the biggest ways we do this is through connecting through, I like to send handwritten letters. So always after meeting someone or having a speaker, I'm always writing a handwritten thank you letter. And I know Carla mentioned that in the talk yesterday. I think that's really important. So just maintaining that connection when we're in a quarantine time is very essential. So how have things changed since September 2019? As we know, we have moved a lot of our events from live events to virtual events. And in this case, I have been working a lot with Catholic women speakers, and I have a friend here, international Catholic speaker and life coach Mary Bielski, who you all had in Venice for your women's conference in February. So she has a little encouraging message for you about this quarantine time. So I'm going to play this video and hopefully you can hear her. Oh, let's try again. Here we go. Oh, sorry. He wants to go to the next slide.
Hello to the Diocese of Venice. It's Mary Bielski here. First and foremost, I wanted to thank you for having me come out to your diocese just a couple of months ago. And I think back to that time, none of us knew that quarantine was coming. None of us knew that life would be literally shifted so dramatically in such a short time. And so I think it's really caused a lot of us in ministry to have to backpedal and reassess, and it's basically leading all of us, including myself, into really some challenging areas of how we're going to respond. So I'm sitting here on a Sunday sharing just 3 thoughts with you about what that is inviting us into this season. Number one, I want to acknowledge that this quarantine transition has been hard for all of us, especially in ministry. I had 4 months of events just completely canceled. I found myself in a place where I had to reassess how I'm going to respond, what God is inviting me into, my personal prayer, but also how will I minister and how will I show up during this season. And I think that's true for all of us. We're all just trying to figure out what is God asking us on a personal level, but also as a church. And I think in the next, I'm going to be prophetic. I just think that God is on the move and things are going to be shifting. And the church, her wisdom, has always spoken and seen kind of ahead of time and called us into these seasons really well. Like JP2, my favorite, John Paul the Great, talked about, of course, the new evangelization. And he highlighted 3 qualities of the new evangelization being a new ardor, right? A new method and new expressions, like a different modality of how we meet people in everyday life. And as I sit here with you on a Sunday in my hangout clothes, I think the culture is looking for a church that authentically meets them where they're at. And quarantine has caused us to slow down, has given us an opportunity to use social media in different ardor and methods in a really unique way. But my third point, right, is that it requires us to be brave. I don't like social media. I like the up in front coaching one-on-one. I minister to people around the country. I travel. I don't like the screen and I don't like flashy. And it's really caused me to step outside of my comfort zone and challenged me in some really unique ways. And I just want to encourage all of us as a church right now that wherever you're at, whatever challenges are kind of showing up in your business realm, sit with the Lord and ask him, what is he asking you to be brave in? What does that look like in a real practical level? And what different modalities of new ardor, methods, and expressions is he inviting you into in this season, in this time, to change hearts? I think if all of us take the time to reflect and do that, it's going to be amazing to see what God uses in this hard time to make his glory shown. So hope you're doing well. I'm praying for you all and encouraging you all. We're in this together, and he has the glory and the victory. Amen. Have a great day, guys.
So amen to Mary Bielski. She's an inspiring speaker, as you know, having 400 people at your Catholic Women's Conference in February. So how has her life changed since the quarantine? As a speaker who travels around the country, she's had to create virtual content more often than she, as you saw, would like to do. So she's doing a lot of Insta stories. She's doing a lot of videos and content on her feed on Facebook. You can see on this slide, she has her website. And last night, for example, as part of the Genius Women's Conference reunion, we had 40 plus people of the 100 plus participants from the Genius Women's Conference come on a Zoom call as a little reunion, and we did prayer requests and just celebrated together, since it's been about 8 weeks since that Genius Women's Conference that was in Dallas right before the quarantine. And Mary was one of the speakers there, and it was founded by Liv Harrison. And this way that these Catholic women speakers have had to change their businesses is akin to what I see a lot of you maybe struggling with, and being brave and stepping outside your comfort zone, and maybe learning new social media techniques, or learning how to take an event onto one cause, to do a gala, or do all sorts of silent auctions. And I'm going to talk about that in the presentation. But throughout the presentation, I have these little videos to encourage you, because I think one of our number one roles in fundraising and in Catholic evangelization in schools is to sort of highlight the people who are in our organizations, who are in our Catholic speaking worlds, to bring them to the mothers and to our colleagues, and be that light, be that encouragement, and show why we're Christians, why are we here doing what we do in Catholic education. And that can be hard in the administrative, just all the tasks and the many hats we all have to wear. So in listening to how these Catholic speakers do this, I thought it might sort of give you some ideas of ways you could bring in some of these potential speakers to do a virtual, but real-time event like this, where these people are speaking to your constituents. So I wanted to have that in your minds for this event. So if you are looking to take your events from live to virtual, and you're looking to do fundraising now, how can you do that? So you can see I put the hashtag pitch. Having a hashtag for your event is very important. As you know, you click the hashtag and you can see all the pictures related to that event throughout social media. Doing the @ sign and tagging the people who are in your event, who are speaking. So, a lot of the teenagers and the young adults are using Snapchat, and we can talk day and night about the pros and cons of that. But it's here and kids are using it. So in connecting with your student audiences, that's a venue where you can also promote your events or your fundraisers with students. So make your pitch clear, promote your event, perhaps using a video from last year showing your audience how you use the funds, highlighting the students who are using the new buses, or the students who are wearing the new uniforms, showing your new gym that's just been redone, and highlighting your people. In my Home Place Wisdom, a ministry in Catholic vocational development, I would highlight the women from our parish who were now stay-at-home moms, or some who were working or writing, and we would, like a workplace wisdom event, we did home place wisdom. So we were showing how we could grow in our vocation at home. So having videos of teachers in your school, or having you as principals or fundraising people talk about your own story and your path to how you got here would be really interesting to share your successes. So when I worked at Columbia University in training and development, we did this, and at the University of Akron in training and development, we did a workplace wisdom seminar where we had the polymer scientists highlighted, and then we had the women's basketball coach highlighted. And so to show how these people connect, and all for student success for the university, it built connection, and just again highlighted to our alums and our donors, we have these incredible people who work here in our universities. And just to piggyback back on the Women's Connection event from September, having our superintendent come and speak. She was the first woman superintendent in the Stanford Public Schools, and she was in the middle of a mold crisis where the buildings were just suffering millions of dollars of mold problems that had come out that year. And instead of shying away from that, she came to the conference and talked about putting joy ahead of fear. And she told us her story of how she always said yes. She might, in times we often say that women feel like we have to be 100% prepared for the job we're being offered. And instead she's saying, say yes to new opportunities and be brave instead of waiting until you're perfectly prepared for that next step. So the superintendent presenting at my conference was great for the nonprofit, the Stanford Public Education Foundation, that supports education in Stamford, Connecticut. That's another way that she showed the Stanford why was her story. And so sharing that personal connection with your donors is really, really important. So in fundraising now, prioritizing your ask. Right now, particularly, as we all can feel, there's a pinch. Our budgets are pinched. Everyone is, struggling in unemployment. Now it might be a difficult time to ask for a lot of money. So right now, we might want to be specific with our fundraising goals. Like we discussed, if you have really old transportation, then you need new buses. If maybe you need to raise money for a senior trip and showing how the kids will use that money, why it's important. Maybe you want a new STEM lab, something where the donors can really wrap their arms around that idea. Pick up the phone. It's not a virtual event, but picking up the phone, it's still old-fashioned a way to connect with people. The handwritten letters, as I mentioned. You really nurture your volunteers. The volunteers, the PTA, the people who are there to help you, they're gold, right? As a mom with 5, I've spent hours in silent auction rooms making baskets and celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week. And these volunteers love your schools, and they're the heart of a lot of these fundraising efforts. And in quarantine, when you're doing remote learning and trying to figure out all the end of year graduations, the volunteers might not be the top of the priority, but having someone on your team delegated to connect with them or thank them even in this remote time would go a long way towards next year's fundraisers and events. And ask people how they can pray for you. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and focus on that connection too. We know that you're all going through your own challenges in this quarantine time. And as a Catholic in the diocese, I just want to thank you. And I'm grateful for what you're doing for Catholic education. I know many other people share that sentiment.
Lisa, we have a question from
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Quick question. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, please.
Had an auction plan, and we had people working on it from January until right up until it was canceled. Okay. And there's somebody I want to continue to cultivate. So in the past, we've taken those volunteers that are on that team out on to lunch to thank them. So do you recommend that we do something like that before it's really happened? I might be doing an online event, taking what we have, a smaller version of it. Can't really go out to lunch. I'm just trying to think of ideas. Yes, I need to thank them. I know to thank them. I'm just thinking, what are some creative ways to do that? Do I wait until I don't want to lose their enthusiasm.
Oh, I think it's amazing that you're going through this, and we can talk in detail about how you could transition that event. To thank your volunteers, I think you could definitely do a shout out on social media to them if you have a social media outlet, and tag them on their accounts if they're all connected to you that way. And just say, as soon as we can get back together, I can't wait to see you, and I truly appreciate you, and we'll have that lunch together. Depending on what the guidelines are for your school district, you could do a tailgate parking lot lunch party where you're all in the back of your cars and you're sharing a lunch that even if you send them all gift cards, a $10 sandwich from the local deli, but a thank you card inside would mean a lot, just to know that they're seen and appreciated. And I'm sure they appreciate what you're going through. So again, you could delegate that to someone else on the team. Even a head volunteer could help with those thank yous to help take that burden off of you. We were talking about this for the Newfield Elementary PTA, how we could thank the teachers. And one of the moms on Adobe Spark made a video of all the kids holding up signs and thanking the teachers for what they did for them this year. and she's a creative designer, but volunteering her time. So the video just about made me cry. We're not even there anymore. So those are creative ideas on how you could thank the team. And I would say if you can't do the lunch now, or you don't want to do a parking lot celebration, just to have a future date set to say, you know, we're going to be doing this, even if we have to do it in September. But we do appreciate you very much. Would you like to follow up that question more, or could I answer that further for you?
No, you're good.
Okay. Do any of those things sound doable to you?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I had told them that we pushed it off, but I like the ideas that you gave me, which was good.
Okay. Thank you. That's a really helpful question. Does anyone else have a question at this time?
You can put it in the chat box too.
Okay, so Liv Harrison is a Catholic speaker and MC, and she has done some online MC work where she's raised money for a couple of nonprofits who have missions, like doing retreats and overseas priest and parishioner travel. And she is on Sirius XM. And what she brought with the Catholic Women's Conference, the Catholic Genius Women's Conference, she brought together women who talked about the feminine genius from JP2's encyclica. And this conference happened right before the quarantine, as I said, and as everyone left, everything sort of shut down. And it felt very divine to me that we were able to get this conference in and do all of the work needed to be done with the technology beforehand. And now, like Mary Bielski, she has moved most of her business online with Insta stories, podcasts she's creating, and a lot of her, she does a live to laugh with other Catholic speakers and guests on Instagram. So an Instagram live session would be a really innovative way for some of you to consider reaching out to your people right now. If you had a talk with a bishop or a talk with your priest, and you could be sharing the screen and showing live how you're managing this time and give an update about when we'll be able to receive the Eucharist again. And that live would stay on your Instagram for 24 hours. And then you can transfer that video to a YouTube channel where people could see it later. And it might seem like a lot of technology, but once you do it once, it's fairly simple. And a lot of, I'll talk later about Bishop Caggiano in Connecticut, but he's starting a podcast called Let Me Be Frank. And so just these examples of how we can use innovation are key to our event planning and fundraising. So here's a little video from Liv.
Hello, Diocese of Venice. How are you guys? Happy quarantine. I don't know if we can say that, but anyway, my name is Liv Harrison. I am in Houston, Texas. So we're probably having similar weather. It's really beautiful today. We don't get the great sand and beach. And have you heard of the Texas? It's awful. So yeah, yay y'all. But I am a Catholic speaker and an MC, and I'm on the radio and podcasts, and I'm the creator of the Genius Women's Conference, which is a Catholic Women's Conference. Here's the deal. Quarantine is something else. And I feel like we're all having to reinvent ourselves. Actually, no, I don't. I feel like we thought we were reinventing ourselves, but actually we're discovering ourselves. We're rediscovering ourselves. So I'm really taking this time to dig into some things that normally I would be too busy to do. For instance, my weight loss. I used to weigh 458 pounds, and as of this morning, I'm 189. I have been really working through quarantine not to gain the COVID-19. So, that's what I'm doing. I'm pretending I'm in my own teen flick, and I'm going to be the girl that emerges from the band class, you know what I mean? Like the geeky whatever. Not that if you were band, you were geeky. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in these films, what do they know? And then she comes out, she's all like, whatever. honestly, it's so that I can get healthier, and I'm really trying to work on my prayer life. So that's where I'm at in some of the personal projects, starting my own nonprofit. But here's the deal. I think you guys are fantastic. I'm praying for you. I hope you have a wonderful whatever. God bless. Stay well.
Okay, so Liv's an example of someone who uses humor in her talks and tries to keep things light and keep us feeling a little bit more human. And she brings levity to a lot of these events. And I think it's a good reminder that even though we're hearing so many sad stories, and this has been an unprecedented time for everyone, we want to keep showing the humorous, fun side of our schools and of our fundraising efforts. So students know this better than anyone in their TikTok stories and all the Musical.ly and the videos and things they're making right now. They are dealing with anxiety through humor. So it's just a good reminder as you plan these events and you think about people who you can bring in or yourself speaking, just try to make it humorous and fun. And remember, we're all in this together. So looking at the social media options you can use for your events, we don't want to forget how essential social media is right now, especially to the 40 and under crowd. A lot of people from 25 to 40 are using Instagram, and Instagram Live is very, very popular in the past 40 days. Many people have been using the Instagram Live. I'm sure you've seen Some Good News newscasting from John Krasinski from The Office, where he's doing the virtual prom and the virtual graduation and bringing in these celebrities. So that's another example of, if we can't get together or we're not sure how to do graduation, you can do a lot of things through Instagram Live and through your feed and stories. Like Sarasota Christian School here locally, for example, is highlighting their seniors. So every day on their Instagram and Facebook, they have a different senior with their picture, their favorite quote, what they did while they were at school, and then people are commenting in the comments to just celebrate each senior. They're working on different ways to do graduation for the 8th grade and the seniors, and their development team has been working on a fall gala, and a lot of things are different with how we're planning for the fall. We might not be able to get as many silent auction donations and all of our, baskets, the classes make the baskets and donate all the things where we're not together right now. So we might have to change that focus like we mentioned before. You can also use Twitter, create a YouTube channel, like I said. It's kind of fun to think about using TikTok, even if you're 40 plus. There's some fun videos sort of mocking people who are older making TikToks, but you can also embrace that in your teaching and fundraising efforts. And you can even create a Patreon account for what you're doing. Catholic artists do this to help fund their efforts. And you can even do this as part of your fundraising. If you have a team in your school who's sharing a drama effort, or your teachers are doing something silly to promote an event, you can have a Patreon account. And this video is Allison Sullivan. She has a Catholic podcast called Sinner, Sister, Saint. And she's a good example of just really how to motivate and speak and use just beautiful language and scripture and what you're doing with your online videos.
Hello, my name is Allison Sullivan, and it is such an honor and joy to be in ministry, especially ministry within the Catholic Church. I love the Catholic Church. I feel as bound to her as I do my marriage, but it's not without complication, because I have at times found it difficult to fit in. And loneliness has been a significant part of my spiritual journey. And Jesus seems to think it's quite all right. It was certainly a part of his. Most recently, I have found myself writing and speaking and podcasting. I cherish conversations with women, and how we have lived life deeply is such a celebration to me. Conversations with women bring clarity to my life. Being married is my greatest earthly treasure, and motherhood is sacred. My husband and I have been on a long journey that includes infertility and miscarriage and adoption. And we have 5 kids, 4 biological and 1 adopted from China who has Down syndrome. And the people that I share this house with make my heart soar and crash and soar some more. I love unity. I feel really passionately about linking elbows as children of God and lovers of Christ and housers of the Holy Spirit, and letting everything shrink down to its proper size when compared to the size of God's love, and then getting some work done in his name to build his kingdom for his glory. Because if the church isn't going to light up the dark corners of this world, then who? It's so nice to meet you guys. I hope to meet each other more personally soon. Until then, count on my prayers during this strange and uncertain time. God bless.
So you might be thinking, you know, how could I create online videos, or how could we highlight our amazing language arts department or our amazing math department? And a lot of teachers and people in your schools might not be comfortable going out of their comfort zone and thinking of ways that their jobs link to fundraising. Maybe they're already comfortable and they're doing this, but if not, showing these videos to them as an example of how these Catholic speakers are inside their homes, they're sharing their wisdom, and donors want to see, you know, what are we learning? How are we linking the Catholic faith to an everyday story of, you know, our curriculum? How is it all different than public education? You know, why do I want to donate to the Catholic schools? Because I know the kids are learning. They're learning the faith every day. They're hearing scripture. They're understanding catechism. They're exposed to godly Catholic people. So this is an example where you could bring someone who is really poetic in their teaching, or really impressive in their presentation skills, and even if they're not used to it, they might be surprised that the donors like to hear what they're doing. For instance, if you go on master classes right now, or you go to the different universities, you can actually download and watch the classes the Harvard professors are teaching. And an idea I had about innovation in education is to highlight your own experts. You know, for example, you guys have a great varsity girls basketball coach who I met through the G League this summer. What a great example to put some videos of what he does and let your donors see. This is why you have such a great girls basketball team. You have this great coach who is inspiring, for example. So another opportunity for connection and fundraising is using Facebook private groups. You could create a group for moms to connect inside of your school. So you have your PTA, you have moms helping in certain ways, but I find that moms really drive the attendance at the galas and the fundraisers. The moms are often behind. Not that the dads aren't. The dads are amazing and spiritual leaders of the family, but the moms are, you know, often holding the checkbook in a lot of the ways where we decide how we're going to spend our money. And one of the ways we can nurture that in an authentic, real way, but also to help with fundraising, is to connect the moms. If moms stay connected, they stay in Catholic schools and they keep paying tuition and donating. So an example of a Facebook private group is Laura Rowland, a Catholic speaker and co-founder of Encounter Grace in Washington, D.C., and she's also a part of Catholic Women in Business, which is a private Facebook group. And the ways that these women are connecting, they share their writing, they share their prayer requests, they share their challenges, and this group can only be seen by them. So if they post something to the Facebook private group that's more intimate or vulnerable, only those members can see it. So if I were a Catholic principal, if I had a private Facebook group with my moms or parents, I would love to share some of these stories and authors, even a Bible study or a Walking with Purpose, something to keep my moms engaged. And this was early in the quarantine where I asked Laura to give you guys some encouragement. So she was outside, and here we go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura, and I'm a dear friend of Lisa's. And she asked a bunch of us to do some funny videos to cheer everybody up. I'm not actually naturally funny, and I don't tell jokes very well. I just don't. But what I can do is to offer each of you some encouragement. Know that I will be praying for each and every one of you, for your diocese, your archdiocese, for all of the people that are involved in the work of your church there. I work and support women's ministries here in Washington, D.C. I'm a former Catholic school teacher, and I used to work in our own Catholic school office, so I totally understand what you're trying to do. And I just want to applaud your efforts to continue to fundraise, but more importantly, you're building community. And I just want to encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing. Times are rough, but I know that the Holy Spirit is really striking a chord with all of you. Creating just a beautiful way for the church, for the schools, for all of the programs in your area. So from my heart to yours, and that's no joke because I don't tell jokes, not very well anyway. So from my heart to yours, just may God just continue to smile on you and to bless each and every one of you. And hopefully one day soon we'll be able to hug again.
Okay, so I just noticed in the comments that, Joseph, you were saying you have a parents Facebook group and you love the idea of a mom's group and a dad's group for that matter. I don't want to discount the dads. I obviously work with a lot of Catholic women speakers, but the dads and the men in the Catholic speaking world are obviously powerhouse and fantastic. And Ashton Elementary, for example, has an Ashton Dads group, and they do daddy-daughter dance, and they help with fundraising. They help with preparing the set for the almost Broadway-worthy elementary production. They did Matilda this year, and it was really incredible. And the dads are really nurtured by the administrators there. And coming down from Connecticut, where a lot of the dads in the schools where we were, commuting to New York City and just didn't have the time. They wanted to help more, but they couldn't. So it was more moms in the schools. Here in Ashton, in the public schools, it's really impressive to see the dads groups. I definitely think a dad's prayer group, a dad's Bible study, bringing in authors or speakers, book signings for dads is just as important as for women. Obviously, this is what I do in my business, but and again, it's mostly philanthropic. All the money goes back into the Catholic efforts. So bringing these women to you is very much part of my desire to evangelize in the church. And I love what you guys are talking about on the comments too, about bringing the humor. I love to see what Melissa said, that you do a humorous video for the Giving Challenge. And with your seniors, we can't celebrate seniors enough. As Carla mentioned, the seniors leave and then they graduate, and then they're part of the alums and the donors for life. And we want to really nurture that alumni network. I can tell you, I'm still getting letters, handwritten notes from Regina Paci's Academy in Norwalk, Connecticut, and from Cardinal Kung Academy in Stanford, the new classical high school there. And these schools were built from the ground up. They were built from parents' efforts to create classical education. And what I noticed in the way they did their fundraising, for instance, for their spring fling, my kids were there for 2 years. We had Tom Shalhoub, who is he was opening for Jim Gaffigan, and he has a Fox News show. He came and he talked at the spring gala, and it just really, really brought a celebrity presence who's also a very devout Catholic and lives within this group of friends. And also the year before, it was a famous NFL football player who came back, who's very active in the Catholic Church. So in thinking about those reminders, bringing those events virtually, you could definitely look to a celebrity who is in your community, or some well-known speaker or someone who has a following on social media, and bring them in for a virtual talk as part of a monthly speaker series or an annual gala. To have that highlighted name is really, excuse me, Matt Burke was the football player who came and talked, and Matt and Adriana were friends from Greenwich, and they do a lot of ministry now Matt was an opener for the Jennifer Fulwiler Catholic Comedy Tour she did in Chicago, New York, and around the country. And so to bring in people who have that connection, again, just helps to promote what it is that you guys are doing. So if you have ideas of local people here in Sarasota, you could ask them. Okay, so for some of you who might be sort of new to development and fundraising, you might be thinking, so now what? I'm a creative designer. I have to know how to do all these things. And I think it is important, even if you've never made any artwork or memes or a social media post, to not be afraid, to be brave, like Mary Bielski mentioned. Social media for fundraising is something that happens year round. Every time you post, it's social media fundraising is a consideration. So there's a lot of free apps and things you can use on your phone to even do it and mess around with it with your own personal pictures. So Canva, Word Swag, Story Swag, Adobe has a great way to make videos, and another app for social media creation is Over. So if you look at this picture here, you can see I've just taken a sample clip art of a principal, added the words and the date of the event. And a good way to maintain communication in this time is to have weekly, chats with your school, and bring special guests in and talk about, what's happening. For the kids to see your faces and the parents to see that things are still going, we're enrolling for the fall, things are happening. Again, it's just creates more content. And inside the world of the internet, there's algorithms where the more you put content out there, the more the internet says, oh, this is popular, we're going to repost these things to different audiences. So the more you interact with your audience, the more you click a response to a comment, the more you like, the more you share, the internet algorithm says, oh, this is a popular person, I'm going to repost this. So instead of having to pay for the Facebook ads, the Facebook starts to do that for you, which is something that is hard to sort of fathom. But what it means practically is just keep interacting with your social media audiences, keep commenting, responding, tagging other people who are doing similar jobs to you in other school districts or dioceses, and getting them to repost your content helps that algorithm to improve. And then you get more students, potential students, more donors seeing your content. So you can download Canva, Word Swag, Story Swag for free. Word Swag would be for internet posts for your feed, and that's in Instagram. And Story Swag is something I use for the Live to Laugh Insta Live. So I'll create a 3-part video with pictures and music, and it's very simple. It's like sending an email. You can literally create backgrounds and different transitions, and it looks professional. Again, this is not what I do, but I've learned to do it because I find it so fun and rewarding. So for someone who's not a creative designer, which is me, I think you could try it and enjoy it. So if anyone has any social media design questions for linking their fundraisers, I could stop and take those now. Or
I just have a comment I put in the chat. I think many people here participated in Jennifer Falestini's overview of Canva. And
okay.
Great feedback on it. So great that Jennifer and I will be working together to create a Canva workshop series this summer virtually.
Oh, fantastic.
We'll send more information about that. And in addition to Canva, we'll probably be offering some other creative programs that people might be interested in, from photo editing, video editing, and things of that nature.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. What a great resource. I would love to tune in and learn what you're learning. That's amazing. Okay, so when you're thinking about your events, if you've had a live event planned for, let's say May, June, okay, we have a pretty good idea of what's happening locally around the country. People have canceled all of their live events for May, and they've gone virtual. So what do I need to do in planning my virtual event? I need to brand. I have to keep the branding going throughout the campaign, just like I would if it was a live event. So we want to become very close with our web development teams, our technology teams, to have a good campaign page, just like with a live event. If you don't have a web development or technology team, again, you might want to look to your volunteers. A lot of these, especially the moms I know who've become stay-at-home moms, they love to use their skills from their career to help with these events. So don't be afraid to put out an ask and say, does anybody know how to do this? Another thing you'll probably face is negotiating with your live venues. If you had a gala planned and it was at a hotel or an event space, these hotels are dealing with this all the time now. So if you're if you're locked into a contract and you still need to use that contract, you might negotiate and say, how about if we have a future thank you event in November, thanking people for what they donated in my live event. So I might keep the same date for, it's May 15th. We're doing our virtual gala. Everybody come get dressed up in your black tie attire, and we'll go live through the screen, and we'll do the dancing, we'll do the speaker, we'll do the auction. But later we will be having our thank you event downtown at the hotel. So that's just an example. I just saw the link posted there in the chat. So you'll be able to see the slides and all of this later and be able to use the links inside. So just like a live event, it's essential that you have a virtual event timeline and delegate those virtual roles. Using technology, like I'm not part of One Cause, but I would recommend using a GiveSmart or One Cause to help you through a virtual event. If you have a budget and you can talk to a consultant there, I highly recommend it. It's very seamless. You can take everything on the phone through the apps. People can be doing the silent auction bidding right through their phone and bidding live, bidding a week before, leading up to the event. All the advertising comes in through that software, and you're usually able to use that software all year. So if you want to have a silent auction later in the spring, you can do that as well. So I highly recommend trying to use it with a vendor if you can. If you can't, there's a lot of software options. You can use Zoom. The Good Counsel Homes nonprofit did a really great Zoom virtual event recently in April, where they were able to bring people in and use the tickets and show the CEO and show the moms and how they're funding these homes where these women are raising these babies in their Catholic nonprofit. So that's a great example. You can use Crowdcast. You can use, Evite even has a way that you can do an event with Evite. So if you don't have a budget and you just want to go for it, you can use that software. And I'd be happy to help anyone with questions on how to transition their event that way. For the silent auctions, again, using creative resources, teacher experiences, and dress down days, ways that you can be creative where you might not be as comfortable going to your local pizza shop or your local small business who's usually your vendor or your sponsor or your basket donator. Maybe you are comfortable, maybe you still have those good relationships, but if you're pulling back a little bit in May and June because of the quarantine, we have a lot of resources inside our schools where we can ask people for these donations. So try to be creative, but have a really good strategic plan with your team and use your resources within the diocese to ask the questions of how we can maintain our consistent branding. We have style sheets and text design and text choices, and I know you probably talked about that with the Canva presentation. So trying to maintain a visual look that's the same in your brand is just as essential when you're going virtual. So you can also use charity.gofundme.com, where they have live leaderboards, donor scrolls, campaign updates, and videos. GoFundMe is a great resource that you can use in your everyday fundraising. It's not just for, new or different fundraising. So again, more on the silent auctions. I'm sure many of you know this and have done this before, but it's essential to have a master vendor list. If you're the one in charge and you're delegating out to your moms or volunteers or teachers, wherever, to bring in the auction items, that master vendor list could be shared in a Google Drive where everyone has access and everyone's able to change. If you delegate 10 vendors to one person and they keep updates, it's important to have an update 3 times on your list, when we first talk to them, when they're donating the item, and actually following through and having that person bring the item to you. As many of you know, when you're the person in charge of the silent auction, oftentimes last minute, we're scrambling to go pick up the items ourselves. So making sure your volunteers have agreed to stick with you through the whole event in those 3 important dates to be bringing you the actual items. So many popular ones, as you know, teacher lunches, principal for the day, a celebrity parent meeting or Zoom meeting. Some good news, John Krasinski found a student who loved Broadway, and he brought in Broadway stars through the Zoom to talk to the little girl, and she thought she was just getting to meet them on Zoom. Well, they actually ended up doing the Broadway show, beginning of the show, in the Zoom. So using creative resources here in Sarasota, again, how could we auction off those opportunities? The mobile bidding is easy through One Cause. There's some really good articles I've linked on a planning guide that you can get from this PowerPoint. If you sign up on One Cause for email updates, I'm getting them every day, and I find them really interesting for planning events with what I'm doing as well. But again, just looking ahead, surveying your people. You can survey your parents and ask them, would you like to keep this, if you're a PTA or PTO, would you like to keep this event now? Should we do it in the fall? What's everybody up for? How are your kids doing? Is everybody just ready to go on summer break and not continue? It's all been too much. So there was an example of a gala that happened with Kendra Tierney from Catholic All Year, and she and her family dressed up in the full party gear, and they were there virtually, and she showcased it on her blog. But that's just an example of how you can still make it fun. I remember in Connecticut for St. John's Basilica, we had a Kentucky Derby party every year, and we all wore the hats. And recently they had a Mardi Gras event, and a lot of the parish came. And so if we were able to think ahead and do something like a Kentucky Derby party virtually, everyone could put their hats on and have a hat contest, and we could all be judging who won the hat contest or the Dapper Dan for the men. But just use your creative hat and think about fun ways you could do that. So here's another.
I don't want to cut in too much, but we're down to about 1 minute before I have to end this meeting. Okay, so I will click through and just show you. There's a couple more examples of how people have used the virtual time, the webinars on Haven Halftime, podcasts, and I wrote some sample ways that you could do fundraisers: a senior skip day, a chocolate chip cookie bake-off, a cookbook, takeout night. Every Tuesday we get pizza, and some other ideas. So you can look at those on the website, and everyone's linked at the end here. And the most important thing I would tell you is just maintain the connection, maintain the community. And if you have questions about how you can do that, use those vendors, or feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's going through an event.